touring the country. Comments or correspondence? Anybody sign up, Rachel?
No.
Okay, public appearances, we got Waterford Grade School, graded, excuse me. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Let this pass around.
No, I can get this moving. I'm Noah Wisham, I'm the treasurer for the Waterford Grade School District Board. Heather Sackman is joining me. She is the clerk for the school board. We're just here to, I guess, inform you guys a little bit about the referendum that we have coming up. It's set for November 5th with the election, with obviously the presidential election and every other election you can imagine, judging by my mailbox. So basically what we're asking for is what we're asking for is $3 million a year for the next 4 years, for a total of $12 million. Asking to raise our levy limit. I know you guys are familiar with what that process is. We're not asking to borrow money, we're just asking to be able to tax more. The reason for this is, as I'm sure you guys are aware, with the local levy limits, we're set by the state as to what we're allowed to levy against the tax rules. That is and has been not kept up with by the state legislature for the last 20 years or so. One of the slides that you have here shows that we're about 87% of school districts in the state of Wisconsin had to ask for a referendum of this type. So we're joining that company. As you guys, I'm sure, are aware, we did a similar request in April. I don't know if you want to talk about that, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure, so we had the referendum in April, and that was $4 million for 5 years, and that did not pass. And so as a result, we made significant cuts within the district. And so you'll see in the slides here, we cut 12 full-time positions, or 12 positions were eliminated. This reduced our budget by $1.75 million. This was definitely a big cut to the system, but had to make tough choices here. With that, the special education, you can see paraprofessionals went from full-time to part-time to reduce those costs. Looked at combining some of our positions for the academic intervention coordinator and the talented and gifted coordinator positions, which are very valuable in our district. We looked at adjustments to employee and salary benefits along with reducing our HRA funding levels. Looked at, and we actually transitioned to a self-funded health insurance model so that we could save additional budget dollars. You can continue to read through the list and all of the cuts that were made. Some of the things that are kind of to my heart, looking at deferring maintenance projects. We've seen that, if we don't continue to support the operational costs, then that really dives into our deferring our maintenance costs as well. So with that, if you turn the page, we are looking at, like as Noah said, the $3 million per year for the next 4 years. We are looking at a deficit this year of $1.5 million, and then as we go into the following year, if the next referendum does not pass, we will be looking at additional cuts and reviewing all of the programming and staffing for the music, art, Phi-Ed areas, 5th and 6th grade band opportunities, adjustments to special education programming as well, the FACS and Fab Labs, so your home ec and your Fab Lab that was just built here in Fox River. One of the best, one of the things kids really look forward to, and that's where your engineers and your mechanics and your hands-on activities occur. Also, world language, reducing and cutting that to state standard minimums. 4K related arts, And then class sizes, being maximized across the board. Also looking at school counselor reduction cuts, and the list kind of goes on and on. Also scheduling and operational, so looking at evaluating a lot of different areas there. Looking at middle school schedule changes, so while we cut programs, we introduced study halls. Changing our complete schedule, so right now they have 90-minute classes, going to 60-minute classes. Looking at additional contract days for our teaching staff, reductions in those, and also eliminating what a lot of the community has really valued is the summer school program. And then continuing to look at employee benefits as well. So another thing, what the registration, the sports clubs, the kind of the extracurriculars that keeps kids interested in school,
Right.
looking at cuts there as well.
I think one of the biggest things that we're looking at is ICC, the redistricting and school reorganization. Kind of all options are on the table on this. Andy, we were talking just before the meeting about new development that's going in up by Trailside. We're not really sure how many kids that's going to bring in. Trailside is is the smallest of the three schools when it comes to, I guess, physical space. We're going to have to, no matter what, we think we're going to have to do some form of redistricting when it comes to that. But if we're going to do that, the question becomes: are we just going to redraw the lines as we did 6 years ago or whenever that was, or is this going to be a situation where we're completely redoing how we're setting up our schools? And it's a situation where it's kindergarten, 4K through second grade are at one school, and then third through fifth or sixth are at the second school, trying to make that all work. That's going to be a nightmare for parents, and we understand that. If you have a kindergartner and a second grader and one's going to Trailside, one's going to Woodfield, and then you got a fifth grader that you got to get to Evergreen, and you're trying to drop them all off, that's going to be a nightmare. And we understand that. We're not saying that that's where we're going to go, but if we don't have the money to run the schools, all options have to be on the table. So these are things that we're looking at, and every time the government comes with their handout, everybody thinks we're trying to scare people. I think I can speak for Heather and me. We're scared. We're not sure our kids go to these schools, and what kind of schools we're going to have for them if this referendum doesn't pass is going to be interesting. And we're doing the best we can. Heather went through what we did this last spring in order to try to cushion the blow of not having that referendum pass, and it was still a nightmare, obviously, for the teachers that we had to let go, but then for the kids who valued those teachers. And we had to sit one of the harder meetings we've had. We were expecting all the adults to come and yell at us for the cuts that we made, and very few even showed up. But we had like 3 or 4 kids there talking about the fact that their favorite teacher wasn't coming back this year. It hurt. I mean, it was a crappy situation, and that's the situation we're in right now. And it's not just us. It's, like I said, 87% of the school districts across the state. So
Noah,
Yes,
just a couple of points. One, thank you guys for putting this together. I don't
Sorry,
think the
can I
general
just say
public.
one more thing?
Sure.
This is an operational referendum, so this is not a capital improvement, so operational is for operations, it's for, wages, benefits, keeping the schools going, keeping the programming going. It's not for those capital improvements like an expansion or, other types of, budgets.
So, what I would like to do is encourage a little bit of dialogue. I think, hey,
Yeah.
good
Sure.
move on coming out and talking to us about things. So I sat with Ed Brzezinski and some others on the redistricting conversation several years ago and said, hey, please press pause on this. We have a number of projects in the works. They are all at the point of getting ready to go. Maybe it would benefit all of us to not go through this twice and just let them sit like they are. So I'm saying to you now, we have a number of projects in the works. It would be really great if we could go through that same process and dial that in before anything gets moved around. Otherwise, you're gonna do it again 5 or 6 years
right,
out.
and I think when they built, I was
Yep.
on
You
the
weren't on.
redistrict. I was on the
Yeah.
redistricting committee, but I wasn't on the board at the
Yeah.
time. But when they built the schools about 20 years ago, I think they had it in mind that they were going to have to go through this every
Yep.
5-6 years. So,
Sure.
so I mean, we're in that cycle. But of course, I mean,
So
we should work together on this, on knowing when
The
and
other
what's coming,
piece of
so.
this, right, and I don't think the general public understands what I'm getting ready to say, which is Rochester, I think net loss of residents this past year is like 12 residents in aggregate. Like their whole population is actually going down now, just low double digits. The village of Waterford is slightly up, and Michigan's are more, town of Waterford is more or less flat, right? So growth and development plays a huge role in helping the school districts become successful. Somebody sitting in these seats 20 years ago decided to put TID district number 2 into place. That money is gonna roll off of our TID debt service and economic development, rolls onto the school district's tax rolls, beginning in 2026. You should have, roughly $200,000 of relief coming in, which I know is not enough to solve all the problems, but it's something. And we have 2 other TID districts that are active and in play right now.
Which one's TID two?
TID 2 is the Runsheimer TID. The village of Rochester has within its power the ability to do TID districts. It's chosen not to do so. Norway and the town of Waterford, in particular the town of Waterford via boundary agreement, Norway via boundary agreement could achieve an ability to do TID districts and grow. It doesn't appear there's a lot of dialogue to maybe understand what the impact of, hey, we don't have enough tax base to support the kind of schools that we need. Do we want to change the conversation to maybe one about some growth and development?
Any questions? Yeah.
So that's what I was gonna bring up. I had the opportunity, I believe you did too, Don, you were at that meeting with, Tony Spence, Luke Francois, and Kevin McCormick, talking about growth. So I don't know how the other communities leaders get that, kind of that point, that the village of Waterford cannot continue to be the one to develop everything and help these schools out. Those 3 superintendents in that meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, pushed everything of build. We'll worry about redistricting, we'll worry about all those things. The homegrown student, if I'm correct, brings in more money to your district than somebody that's open enrolled.
Yes.
So we obviously want that growth to continue.
Capacity is there.
Yeah,
According to them.
you're down 220 students over 20 years.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to attend the listening session at Woodfield last week, and I was involved in the referendum with the high school as well, and I guess what's difficult is, I know you guys don't have the answers, you only see the same residents at all these events.
Always.
And I know you guys try as hard as any other entity to get that word out more and to get more people to show up. If this referendum fails, and I also, with you guys and kids invested in these schools, or going to these schools, is this gonna be kind of the norm, questions until one day we get lucky and it passes, or that's what we're gonna have to do?
I think it's gonna have to be, and unless something happens at the state level, which there doesn't seem to be any indication that that movement is happening, we're gonna be back in 4 years if this does pass, because we're asking for 4 years. And the reason for that, we wanna give the people the ability to watch what we're doing. And then we can say,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing, this is why. So, and we understand that, and then to Zeke's point on the, the extra money coming in, the $200,000, this gives us the ability to levy up to that amount. And then we still get to be the school board that says, who are fairly conservative minded, especially fiscally conservative minded, going, oh, we don't need this and this and this, let's cut that and keep it, the goal would be, and we wanna build our fund balance up, because we get our revenues in January with the property taxes, and then we get the state aid in August, I believe, and then, just like anybody who's lives paycheck to paycheck, we got July, all of a sudden our fund balance is pretty short, we gotta make sure we cover whatever we need to cover, and in December, it's the same thing, to make sure we cover whatever we're covered. Right now, we have the fund balance to do that, next year we're not going to.
Okay.
And then we're gonna be looking at short-term borrowing and all other issues.
And just to add on to that, in other communities across the state, operational referendums have become routine because districts are at that, capped levy, and they see that it's just a routine thing on the ballot, and they've really looked to continue that moving forward.
And there are
So-
some that have them where it's just
Yep.
permanent.
And
Yes, there
Yeah,
are.
and I think your superintendent told me, which I think is a great idea, he was spending some time in Madison when he could. I think there obviously needs to be a conversation with the lawmakers. The state of Wisconsin's currently sitting on a $1.6 billion surplus, if that's accurate.
Yeah, that's all.
Somewhere in there, give or
Yeah.
take, maybe $1 billion, who knows? So yeah, I think that's also kind of something that should be happening, if possible, through superintendents or whatever, to keep that conversation open.
I don't think he's the only one.
I know, yeah.
That's by the time, I
That's what
agree with
you-
you, I'm just saying, I have trouble with the legislature not moving on this when it seems to be a
agree.
crisis across
Most
the
people
state.
should,
Yes.
most people should.
And I think if that would happen, if some change would occur and this does pass, then the board, we don't have to tax any of it, right?
Yeah.
We have that decision to tax, you know, as much as what would be needed to
Okay.
fund the.
So I could just ask one more thing, it's kind of an oddball question, I just kind of the mood I'm in tonight. I've had some people reach out to me and say that they don't feel their elected leaders, whether it be Rochester, the town, village, wherever, supporting you guys enough in the quest of referendum and saying, you know what, this is a community, achievement, this is not just a school district, and I know this is where this kind of gets a little murky, is because we don't want to necessarily give away our politics or say what we're for a tax increase, we're not. But, you know, the big picture is if the schools fail, we're not gonna have those developments come here, we're not gonna have those people wanna buy those $500,000 homes. You and I may have a hard time selling our home because nobody's gonna wanna buy that if we do not have the schools that we need to have. So I'm just curious if you guys, feel there should be more support from your elected leaders to at least say, maybe get out and educate yourselves on what referendum truly is, or do you prefer they step back?
I have trouble with that question, and the reason I do is,
Statute.
Andy, you and I have had conversations about this. We're different governmental entities, and I don't have a problem supporting it. I agree with support. I would welcome any support. Am I gonna complain when we don't get it from people? No, because you have your own spin.
Personally, not officially.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
For
saying,
sure,
and
yes.
I know you guys have had very spirited conversations.
Yes, I think that's
I just, it's
that's just my philosophy on things. Is for different governmental entities,
Yeah.
let's be that. But any support, I mean, at the same point, like Andy just said, individually,
Correct.
we're all leaders in the community.
I-
Making a
I-
statement would do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just, it's random, it was like, I had 3 people asking that in the last 48 hours.
I don't know,
It's
yeah.
Never been asked before.
I
So
don't
it's
know
kinda
that the board could do anything, but the leadership, of course, is welcome
Well,
that. And I think a lot of the leaders have been supportive of this, so, and understand the situation that we're in.
Thank you for everything.
We do value our schools.
President Houston, I have a question. Do you guys have debt falling off? Or,
We're
Anything
probably,
coming up?
we've been defeasing, but we're still 5-6 years, or 4 or 5 years from paying off the middle school. And we got, we got 2 20-year-old buildings and a 30-year-old building that are, we're looking right down the barrel for trying to figure out what we're gonna do with those, so.
so about 5 years before debt falls off, so.
Yeah, I don't quote me on that, but yeah, it's 2029, 2030, somewhere in there.
Good enough.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Very